On the river where they used to build the boats, by the harbour wall, the place you love the most, I can see you there.
Hello, you're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and this week I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And by Neil.
Hello, Joey.
And by Laurie.
All right, mate.
What a result. What a game. Just overall, what on earth was happening? Moments of the week feels like it's going to be a plentiful bounty today. Neil, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm going to throw the order all out. My moment of the week was Jordan Shipley's goal. So,
Lovely.
just obviously all the goals were great for kind of in their moment, but after getting 3-1 up and then throwing it away in a totally needless way, you just weren't sure how we were going to react to that. And then for him to pop up edge of the box with his lovely left foot and smash it bottom corner. Oh, I love his left foot when he's shooting. I really like him, Jordan Shipley. He's got something. So yeah, that was my moment of the week. Just him scoring that goal and us taking the lead again. And obviously, there's a little bit going on after that, but that was. I feel like I celebrated most for that one.
I love this week. Admittedly, it's only been a small pocket of people, but it's been there nonetheless, that have been saying, is it time to move Bayliss out and replace him with...
Why can't people just enjoy the individual performance? This was a good performance.
But why can't we just have a memory that's longer than 3 days long?
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
Every time.
It's incredible that Shipley this season has gone from being cast out as being like completely useless and ineffective. And now admittedly, it's just some people are like, should we see about releasing our best player and putting him in instead?
Yeah.
Put him
And
out
that's
to
not like
pasture.
slagging off Shipley either. I mean, some of us like him and think he's actually worthwhile, but just the connection and okay, well, that's happened. So definitely that must mean that our best player is no longer needed.
It's just
Shut up.
It's madness, isn't it? I saw someone say, should we bring Shipley into midfield and put Bayliss into the Enabakari role? And you're like, no, let's leave Enabakari in the Enabakari role. He seem to be doing quite a good job of it. I mean, the role is literally named after him in this sense. Should we see about leaving it as it is for now? Paul, your moment of the week.
I literally have decided that I don't have a moment of the week because...
What, we won 5-4 and it's too hard to pick anything sad?
No, because I think the whole news from last week is something sad. And I think the whole juxtaposition of finding out on Thursday that we weren't going to be at the Rico and obviously we were, again, once more in that complete flux, is balanced out by the tremendous victory over Sunderland. But unfortunately, in the last week, those two things have both occurred, and I think they do, to some extent, cancel each other out. I think that's just the way it is at the moment, isn't it? The result on Saturday is tremendous, and we'll spend a lot of time utilising over that. But on the flip side, we don't know where we're going to be playing next season. And
wow.
I'm sorry, that's got to bring you down to earth. And I think it is a case of there is no, the positive of the Sunderland victory is weighed out by the fact that the reality is, as a football club, if that game hadn't been as amazing as it was, we hadn't scored all those goals, a lot of today's discussion would have been about who's going to follow Coventry out of Cov, who's going next season, and where do we go from here? And I think that has got to be at the forefront of everyone's mind as much as the result and the performance was.
Yeah, good weekend to bury bad news, weren't it, I suppose?
Yeah, I think it's sort of, it is if it had been a 1-0 run-of-the-mill result or anything else, then, but I think obviously the football has to take precedent, and we will discuss that and give players credit for the performances they put in and everything else around it. But unfortunately, the underlying situation is, as a football club, we're still tremendously fucked regardless of what's going on the pitch, and that's not what we got involved in the first place.
We're going to start off by talking about Sunderland. We're not going to bother with the game from the week before because it was just literally the same as every game at home this season. But then we will break with convention and just do some chat about the stadium because it's too big to not talk about. What I am looking forward to is me and Neil talking about how we thought Ena Bakari was brilliant, and Paul, you nihilistically saying, yeah, but it doesn't matter, does it? Just as an interjection of everything.
That's my fault, isn't it?
We thought the fifth goal was good, yeah, but it doesn't matter, does it?
If
If you think about it, it didn't even happen.
Unfortunately, it's probably been better if you'd come to me first, because I could have got this out of the way and you could have just launched onto it. And then I'd have no real input for about an hour, which would have been fine by everyone I could, but unfortunately you came to me second.
No,
But
well, it was a tactical decision because I know that Laurie is going to tell me that his moment of the week was Connor Chaplin's either best goal he's ever seen or that he effectively scored 5 with that one goal. I don't know how the Connor Chaplin maths works, as we were discussing before the podcast. But yeah, Laurie, let's bring a bit of levity into proceedings.
So spoiled for choice this week, but I think I'm going to go for something slightly more low-key, which topped off one of the performances of the day, which strangely I thought, considering we conceded 4 goals, was for a defender. So it was when, I can't remember which goals it was between. I think it might have been between our 4th and 5th goals, or 3rd and 4th goals. But Dom Hyam slid in at the byline to block a cross that was set for one of their strikers. Amazing block in and of itself. The ball then bounced up and the striker was looking to pounce on it, and Dom Hyam was like, you know what, my work here is still not done. He then did a bicycle kick from the floor that didn't just put it into more danger, it cleared it perfectly to safety. And then I just saw him like clutch for his hamstrings. I don't know if you've ever tried to kick your leg over your head when you're on the floor, but it's fucking agony. And I then thought he would be out for the rest of injury time, but he hobbled on and carried on playing, and it just topped off. It was just a stupendous performance from him from start to finish. It was unbelievable.
Isn't it at 5-4? Isn't that part of what's so brilliant?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because it was just before extra time.
Because it's one of them. It reminds me a little bit of. Is it the? Oh God! Is it the? In what game is it where we're massively under pressure when Lee Burge comes out and collects it and calms everything down? It's a really important game. There's a game
this season?
No, it was last season. Where it was a really important. It doesn't even matter. But But it was one of them moments where you felt like after it had happened, you were like, okay, I think that was probably the time where we could have fucked it all up.
Yeah.
But that somebody stood up and took control and dealt with everything. The other one is I tell you what I'm thinking of is I think it's Jordan Turnbull in the
Checker
trade. Yeah. You know, towards the end of that game where he just pulls it out of the bag and you're like, wow, we really appreciate you doing that because that probably won us the game one way or another. Yeah, so I'm going to go for... Does anyone listen to... Dom suggested that we listen to Football Weekly because esteemed football journalist Jonathan Wilson was talking about the game.
Yeah, I listened to it.
And I think me and Paul have talked about this before. It's quite good with Wilson because he completely loses all sense of perspective when he's talking about Sunderland. And then and that, like the article that you linked to on Twitter earlier, Neil, about the guy that described us as mediocre League One club, Coventry City, which I sort of looked at and went, yeah, he's got a point. But Wilson said he'd never seen a team time waste before like that, and I had to sort of think to myself, yeah, after we'd scored 5 at your place, you know,
we're also ahead for so little of that game. You know, we spent most of it level.
I remember. I'll tell you what, we did a lot more than time wasted was scored goals. That was what we actually spent a lot more time scoring goals than we did time wasted. And also, how could you have watched as much football as he obviously has and then said what he said was, I haven't seen a team time waste like that before? Oh, please give me a fucking break.
There is definitely, I think we don't really understand it because it doesn't really resonate with us. But there is a certain part of the Sunderland fan base who really do despise us.
Yeah, I think
And
he's
they
part of it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it really sort of, it's one of those things where he's a very rational human being, apart from about Cov. And it's not just the Sunderland thing, it's the fact that Cov did it, and he's still incredibly bitter about the Jimmy Hill stuff, which a lot of them are, like, on bigger percentage than you'd have thought. And one of their, they've got a Love Supreme, which is one of their fanzines, which if you read, I've read some of their stuff in the past, and it's really well put together. It's a really professionally done thing. But their Twitter feed on Saturday led with, "Don't forget Jimmy Hill is a City," and it's like you're even their own fan base was like going, "I actually, I thought you were better than this, aren't we better than this?" And you're just like, yeah, there is a certain part of that fan base who absolutely despise us because of that. And people like Jonathan Wilson, for all of his rationality, he can't get over the fact that 40 years ago, the Cov game was delayed by 15 minutes.
Is he the guy who wrote the inverted pyramid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's really smart then.
We're not talking about
we're talking
chump monkey here. We're talking about someone who is a really respected journalist, but has this complete blind spot.
I've read most of his books, and they're exceptionally well researched and thorough and objective and literate and whatever. But like I say, is that to say I've never seen actually, I had my mate with me who's a Man City fan. We were talking sort of last 10 minutes, and the main thing we were saying when we weren't blowing our nose is we were saying we cannot believe that there have been so many goals conceded where we've been ahead, and we're still not looking after the ball in the last 10 minutes. Like, why weren't we taking it into the corner a bit? Or why weren't we trying to... There were so many... The amount of... Luke Thomas was absolutely knackered, like visibly take me off knackered. And yet people were still pinging balls into the channel for him to chase down in the last 5 minutes. You were thinking, that is not what we should be doing. That is an absolute fucking... That is coming straight back to us. So the idea of us time wasting is nonsense. Like, I felt like they were trying to genuinely keep springing the wide players to score a six. I just didn't see where it had come from. But like as Paul says, is that they just have clearly such a blind spot when it comes to us. And it is amazing... I'm a petty man, as long-term listeners to this podcast will know. It is amazing to see someone's hubris, like, not even hubris, but their own kind of like ridiculous vendetta, like, smash back up in their own face.
Has it always been like this? For some reason, this meeting of us two, for some reason, whether it's just everybody's furious because we're in League One, it seems worse. I mean, we played them a fair few times over the years, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because we're kind of, the whole Twitter generation now, everybody's got a bit more of an outlet to talk their shite. But I don't know what it is. But this time around, it was just constant. And it's weird, yeah? It's weird.
We've been to Sunderland over the years. We've been to most places, or a lot of places, and had very little aggro. One of the only places we've ever had aggro was Sunderland.
Oh, there's always been aggro. It's just the scale of it. For some reason, it just seems to be on everybody's mind this time around, it just seemed to... I don't know what it was.
I think part of it is the fact, and I don't want to say that they started it, but they did start it. I think part of it was the fact that they had threatened to come and smash up the Memorial Garden and stuff like that, weren't it, at the Rico this season. Let's get ourselves on to more positive footballing matters. Laurie, I'm going to lead you very heavily into the first thing that I want to discuss on this game. Bright Enabakari. Discuss.
It was magical, wasn't it? I mean, you were there. We all have our reservations about Bright, and he's by no means perfect. But if there was a perfect performance that I've ever seen in a Coventry shirt, at least for 30, 32, 33 minutes, Bright Enabakari at the start of that game was it. So... From what little tactical acumen I've accumulated over the years, it was just so obvious how little pressure there was on us in the middle of the park. And most teams try and press us a little bit, and they force mistakes out of our back four and our keeper. But on Saturday, I said to you, Joey, I was like, is the pitch like 10% bigger than normal?
Yeah.
And you were like, maybe it's a bit bigger. But it was just so it felt so much bigger because Liam Kelly and Bright and Shipley just had time all the time to turn, to pick passes, to drive forward. And even when we didn't have, I think it was a kind of result of that, even when we were under pressure, normally on the flanks, that were just our first time passing, some of the little triangles we were playing were really good. Like, I was so impressed. Even people like Bakayoko, his first touch was looking much better than normal. And I think it was for Hawula's goal, the little exchange between Mason, Bright, and Hawula was just
gorgeous,
total football.
The
It
best.
was Bright doing a little drag back turn, 1-2 with Mason. They were nowhere near us. They were trying to kick us. They couldn't get near us. Bright drives forward, slips it for Hawula. Hawula demonstrates why you shoot on sight in this division, or in any division, because he just gets a nice deflection. But to get back to Bright,
He was sending
It's
people.
been
He
said
was sending
so many-
people to bed, weren't he? He
was retiring people, as they say on Twitter. It was ludicrous, and it's not like I said in the blog. It's not like he does a curl on and like balances on his face and like runs past people. He just shimmies. He just does dummies. He pretends to kick it and then doesn't kick it, and people just go wandering off down blind alleys looking for the ball. And he does it over and over again. But I've played against people like that before. You just can't do anything because they sell you every time. They're just better than you. And it's horrible to play against because you feel like I should have learnt my lesson here and I haven't. But it didn't go on forever.
It was
Sorry.
like you say, the first half an hour. It was the almost comedic extent to which like one shimmy was sending people. It looked like they were leaving the ground. It was just insane.
And even for his goal, Bakayoko pounces on a loose pass. Again, he's just great at pouncing on stuff, isn't he? And it ends up with Bright on the edge of the box. He's marked by 3 guys.
Yeah, there's
the
people
first
all over
guy
him,
seems to be blocking him. He's like, please don't shoot at the corner flag. Oh, okay. I won't shoot at the corner flag because we're not playing that weird game when you're 9 where you aim at like the street lamppost. And then it's not even a particularly good finish. It's not really in the corner. It kind of goes just under the keeper's hand. And just wondering,
it's one of them
this is
things.
too easy. Something's up here.
It's one of the things with him that I think is I wish the other players would have a look at is I think he just hits it sometimes where it's possibly like there's in not a favourable position. So the sort of thing he does all the time, and he scored a couple of goals from, is he'll hit the ball through a group of players, and I think it unsights the keeper. So, but crucially, I think most of the players in our squad, Luke Thomas, I'm looking very specifically at you, would think, I will move the ball out here so that I've got a clear sight of goal to shoot at. And just don't. Just like you say about Hawula.
Because that gives the keeper a clear sight on it as well.
Hit it. Just hit it first time. What's it? I've referenced this a few times and I can never remember who it was that was saying it. It was someone like Ian Wright or Andy Cole or something was saying the thing that defences can't deal with more than anything else is you doing something quickly because they haven't got the time to think about it and react. If you try and beat a player, then they know there's a shot coming and they can prepare themselves. But it's the element of surprise that kills people, and that's what his goals have been for us this season, hasn't it? Is where he's just gone, fuck it, I'm hitting it. Sometimes
that Accrington one was very similar, but better, wasn't it?
Yeah, the one, with the green shirt, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But just have a go. And I think that actually Saturday was typified by the fact that we did well because players just fucking went for it. And but crucially, players like Enan Bakari were given the space to go for it. So yeah, I agree. He did drop off, I felt, but that for like you say, if we were going to be generous and say the first half he was just different planet. Yeah, but anyway,
I think it also revealed about him that was funny was after him scoring and after his assist for Hawula. I mean, I'm sure everyone could have predicted this. He's one of those players that doesn't really like celebrating with the rest of the team because he doesn't want to detract from his own brilliance.
Yeah.
Like everyone was trying to mob him and he was just like brushing them off and being like, leave me alone. And then like trying to walk towards Mark Robbins and be like, well, he's got no affiliation with Mark Robbins really either. And after the assist as well, he just like, I think Luke Thomas was like giving him this hand signal to be like, come on, enjoy it. And Bright's there like, no, just leave me. Like he's obviously just bang into himself, isn't he? Which is fine because he's a kind of mercurial talent.
Yeah. He's providing the goods, isn't he? Does anyone think he'll be back here next season?
He'll be at Sunderland.
You probably will, yeah. Good call.
Or
yeah.
Plymouth.
Yeah. Right. Anyone else that you would highlight? Anything else about the first half that you want to mention in detail?
Anything else?
Everything
Liam
else,
Kelly.
Where do you start?
Everything else. Liam Kelly, I thought, was brilliant throughout the game. The first time I've really realised how good at long-range passing Liam Kelly is. Some of them were just... It was almost like... I don't know. Once he realised he could do it, he just started thinking, fuck it. I'm going to do it again. And just... We're not talking like little dinks over Sunderland players. We're talking about 35-yard smashes to the other side of the pitch that were inch perfect. Balls that were landing at the feet of like Luke Thomas running full speed. Just unbelievable passes. And in amongst that, him and Shipley were working really well. Shipley had one of his best games, even though he's not better than Tom Bayliss. I love seeing him playing centre midfield, and that is definitely where he should play in his career going forward, because he is just better there. He's dynamic, he's fit, he covers ground, and he's not a replacement, but he's a very good kind of deputy in that position. I thought Mason...
That
sorry,
noise, by the way, in case anyone heard it, was Ed Wilson at home smashing his phone to a million pieces upon you saying that. Does anyone else agree that Shipley deserves a role in the centre, irrespective of whether it's in place of someone else? Paul, Neil?
I'd say he's capable of doing it. I think it's a real difficult one, but saying sort of he deserves it just because of the options that we've got in front of him. It's one of those where you've really probably got to try and change the formation if you want to get him in there or not. I mean, I just think he, without being or wanting anybody to be a utility player, I guess he kind of is one of those where, because much of what he does is based more around his sort of drive and just determination to get things done, I think that's what makes him more useful in other positions, and that's why I've seen him play left back, left wing, centre mid, right wing, and number 10 role before, and he kind of does all of this stuff because he's got this enthusiasm to at least give it his bloody all. But I think actually what I think a lot of people lack or don't give him credit for is that when he's performing well and when he's kind of feeling confident in himself, he's actually really quite calm and composed on the ball. And I think the other day, a lot of that was down to potentially the time that he was afforded, but at the same point he still has to do stuff with it. And I just think he really kind of took his opportunity to show what he could do in midfield. And yeah, it's one of those where if things don't go quite right in sort of over the summer with transfers and stuff, then bringing him in and maybe giving them extended run in the middle wouldn't be the worst option.
For my two penneth, I would say there are some players, and James Milner being the most prominent example of it, who you feel like being a utility player was almost a shame, because had they have been given a run out in one very specific position, actually they've got a real talent and could have been kind of more famous. Sounds a stupid way of putting it, but do you know what I mean? They kind of
no, you're right. Yeah,
in the end, he's kind of become like a sort of parody, useful player, hasn't he? But actually, when you saw him playing for Man City and times where he's given a bit more attacking license at Liverpool, he's a really, really good player. Shipley, actually, on the other hand, is almost quite useful as a utility player, because I think it's quite an interesting thing that you've put on there, because actually I feel like he could drop in for Liam Kelly, I feel like he could drop in for Bayliss, I feel like he could drop in and do a job out wide, I feel like you say, at a push you could put him at left back and see how he got on. But actually, would he be better than any other players that he's replacing? Probably not. And so that kind of makes him like weirdly indispensable as kind of a really good option for any of those positions. But it doesn't have to be that he has to play in front of any of those. And that's not a bad thing, is it? That probably means that he's got a job for life. The other thing that I would say with him that we have talked about before is you literally, well, you probably can. I was going to say you can't put a value on the fact that as players go, he scores goals more frequently than anyone else. And I kind of think we don't really think of that as being like a tremendous commodity anymore for some mad reason, but that he, like he does, doesn't he? He comes on and he plays and he scores goals. You know, I just think I love the fact that he's just like, fuck it, I'll hit it. And quite often it goes in. So
But he's got
he's
history
got
for exactly that kind of goal,
Yeah.
hasn't he? Like
Yeah.
that was the kind of goal he scored in the playoff final, and just breaking forward, especially when he's got the coverage of like Liam Kelly behind him, which I think is why I kind of like him in centre midfield, because if he knows he's got someone there covering for him, and he will get up and support if we've essentially got one man up front, and he will just shoot. And Bayliss, love Bayliss, but he doesn't like shooting at all. So if you do have, and when you're in the centre, maybe you do end up with more opportunities to shoot than you would playing out on the left wing for Shipley. So yeah, if he'd played all season, he might not have been as good as Bayliss on the whole, but he definitely would have scored more goals.
And they've got different attributes as well. So in terms of
Yeah.
Bayliss, I mean, to be fair, I don't want Bayliss, almost don't want him shooting in that position. I don't think he's shown anything to this point that he's really got much of a long shot on him. Whereas Shipley, there's kind of just a trust in his basic technique where I think more often than not he's going to get a decent strike on it, which is why he scores so many goals. Because I don't know, it's something about left footers. They seem to be, you can trust them with the shots. They've just got a purer strike sometimes, and he's one of those where he scores, which is amazing for someone who's still relatively, how old is he now, 21 or something? He's still relatively young, and
Yeah, he is, yeah.
I think he's shaken almost the idea, this is the first team, I'm a professional kind of thing. Now he's just playing football as he would do at any other stage, really. He seems fully kind of comfortable.
I think we need to go a little bit easy on blowing smoke up his arse, because he has been pretty mediocre for long parts of this season. But that's kind of almost what I love about him, that he seems to take no criticism on board, because he must be aware that people have been maybe not that happy with him this year. And he gets his chance to start away at Sunderland, and that goal he scored, it's such a good goal. He's pretty far out, and it's not even he curls it into the kind of harder corner where it's actually curling away, so he's kind of got less space to aim for. And fair play to him, he's not short of confidence at any point, is he? So,
but weirdly, this is just me, I think, but I haven't felt like I've criticised him this season, in the sense where I know what he is and who he can kind of be for the team, and the one thing that he's not is a perfect player in any sense, and he's probably, in terms of mistakes, he does make a lot of mistakes. But if you're rating the kind of attributes that he's got, while I like his left foot, it's all the other stuff which probably isn't really on with the ball a lot of the time, and just him being really enthusiastic about playing football and at least really trying, which I've never really liked, but for some reason, because that's this kind of the bit what really gets the most out of him, where he's showing that side of himself. That's what makes him the player that I think he kind of can be. But I get why everybody else, a lot of people, there are sort of stronger criticisms of him, because if you're not going to look at or value that side of things quite as much as I do, then it's very, I guess it's very easy and very prevalent when you look at all the other, those games where he is making lots of mistakes with the ball, and you sort of think, well, that's the basics. You've got to do that right.
A few other things very quickly, because I think we're the Shipley overload here, but I also think he was coming into a team that was more functional than it has been at other points in the season, so that actually he was kind of the one replacement, was he, on Saturday, from memory? Largely.
Was the centre-back partnership the same? Was Willis out the last
Willis
game
was
as well?
out,
Yeah, so but he kind of was the one replacement for what is other. I mean, we know what our first team is now, don't we? Which we've been complaining about for ages, but that we do. And so he was coming in what is nominally his favoured position. He came into a functional team where there wasn't kind of, well, actually we've moved these people around and blah 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 blah. But crucially, Sunderland played 4-4-2, and the biggest problem that they had on Saturday was the fact that they were just overwhelmed. And I think it was probably as brilliant as Enda Bakari, Shipley and Kelly were, and they really, really were, they were helped hugely by the fact that Sunderland were terribly ill-equipped by having two men where Max Power was the most defensive of the two of them, because they just couldn't. It wasn't a clever way to set up against three very adequate midfielders, and in Enda Bakari, someone who was just making a mockery of them. So I do think there's an element of that, but not to detract away from the performances, which were fabulous, but that I do think that they were very foolhardy in the way that they'd set up.
But isn't that part of the fun of watching football, though?
Yeah, of course, yeah. You want to see it, yeah, of course, yeah.
because obviously just listening to you lot utilised over Shipley and talk about his goals. He scored twice this season. He's only scored 6 in his career, which isn't an awful lot. He had a good game, for what you're saying. He was brilliant. But to some extent, that was one of the first times he's really played centre midfield for us this season. I think in the long term, I think he's got to be starting to put his stamp down. And I think the whole being a utility player is fine when you're sort of sat out here going, well, he wants to play as much as he can. And I think going forward, we've got 4 games left this season unless we get in the playoffs. Bayliss, by the sounds of it, isn't going to come back this season. Neither is Mailer. So he's got 4 games to prove how effective he can be and then take that into next season. Hopefully, you'd like to think be first choice centre midfielder because that's what he wants to be, isn't it? The interesting thing now would be, as we haven't really been discussing because we didn't want to discuss the Bristol Rovers game, be interesting to see against Bradford how Bradford's probably a bit of an odd one. Shrewsbury Town would be more interesting, and Portsmouth in between, where, let's see how he gets on over a run of games instead of, I'm not going to use the term, apart from, the Sunderland game was a freak game from all accounts with the goals, the performances, the way that you're lot saying that Sunderland basically just gave us the centre of the park to do with what we will. We know that doesn't happen, especially at the Ricoh. That doesn't happen at all. The next time it'll be interesting to see how he copes with being put under slightly more pressure, where he's got to think more, where the team in front of you are sat in 2 rows of 4 and you've got to break them down. Shipley has had at times this season where he's looked like he barely knows what he's doing with the football. He's also had good spells. I don't think, obviously there are always COF fans who are quick to sort of lurch one way or the other. He's shown over time that he's an adequate footballer, and he's shown that the levels he can perform at, but he's got to do that from now on in, hasn't he?
I swear he scored more than 6.
I've just looked on Soccer Base, he scored 6.
Just league, or he's had cup goals?
I think it might, okay. League in 43 starts, he scored 6. I'm not saying it's bad.
No. I can remember 6 off the top of my head. So I thought,
the thing is, he doesn't score tap-ins, does he? His goals are. It's like
Luton, the 2 against Luton, both in either season, very good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's sort of when he hits it, he doesn't score. He doesn't score unmemorable goals. He's not one of those players. I think Bayliss has probably scored about 8, but you probably can't remember because some of those he's just sort of trickled it into the corner. There are obviously the other ones against Notts County, which you'll never forget. So, but just saying that it's nice that he is scoring goals, and he's scored 2 more than Kelly has this season, which does stand him a bit ahead. But in reality, he's not a 10-goal a season player yet.
True. On to other things. Laurie, when you win 5-4, there's the 5, but there's also the 4. What happened there?
God, what happened there? So the Bakayoko goal was the second goal, which was almost the strangest of them all because Luke Thomas kind of comes through. Just Sunderland just didn't really seem up for it at all. Like, I read a couple of articles in their newspaper, and they were all slagging off the manager for going way too attacking. And they also just weren't up for the fight. Like, Luke Thomas brushes through 2 tackles on the right-hand side, and then can't really believe it. But Bakayoko is steaming through a kind of inverted triangle of defenders that are all playing him perfectly onside, but he's got a perfect gap between him and the keeper. It's like one of those situations when you're in the away end, you're like, oh, just give it Bakayoko. Look, he's through. And it's never possible to pass it to that player because obviously it shouldn't be possible. But it was possible. And then the even more impossible thing happened, which was him just slotting it past the keeper like he does it every week.
He was like Callum Wilson, wasn't he? Just one stride forward, roll it past the keeper. You were just like, wow, you looked like a really convincing striker there for a second.
But then one of my favourite things on Twitter this week was some Barnsley fan being like, yeah, when we go up, we're going to need strikers like Hawula and Bakayoko in the Championship. And I was like, oh, my sweet Lord. That is an awful opinion.
£2 million, please.
But yeah, that was another great moment on that was recorded was the father and son act giving Bakayoko middle fingers as he celebrated. The son must have been pushing 6 years old, but he was very well acquainted with how to flip someone the bird for an extended period of time. Bakayoko didn't notice. We've already talked about the Hawula goal. Probably briefly
Was that
cover
Hawula's 10th of the season?
It was Hawula's 10th of the season. Yeah, I just checked that.
In the league?
Let's
That's
put it
not
quietly.
bad.
I don't think it was this. I think I was going miles wide. If you look at the angle, from that they've sent, so basically they've got the stats guys who are right up in the heavens, looking down on it, and it's kind of, it does look like it's going about 2 foot wide, and then it obviously take a big deflection, which at League One makes no difference. He's going to get it, but
I think, do you know what gets him it? Is I think the way that he runs away and celebrates causes people to have not scrutinised it particularly, because it was almost as soon as he'd hit it, is that like it takes the deflection, he's running away like he's like, oh, that is exactly what I meant. Oh, Geordie does it again. Yeah, I completely agree. It was going miles wide, but it wasn't the only deflected goal in that game, was it? Were any of them not wildly deflected? From memory, they basically were all kind of like ping ball, especially the Sunderland ones. The point that I was trying to make before, Laurie, about, you know, we scored 5, but that we conceded 4, was more around, actually, should we be concerned about the fact that we scored 4 goals, or was it just a bit mad without wanting to put too much of an agenda in there?
It was concerning in that I don't think Sunderland really played well at any point, apart from maybe the 4 minutes building up to half time. So the Honeyman goal was their first to equalise, and it was a decent enough move, and then someone just shot from the edge of the air and it took a big clanging deflection. So we defended it reasonably up to that point.
I actually thought we defended it really well. I remember looking at it and thinking, actually, Sterling had got a man, and who would have been Luke Thomas, I think. Basically, they just shepherded him inside, and I was like, well, that's probably what you'd want to do. He can't get out wide. There's a players in front of him. Basically, it's going to need to take... Oh, bollocks. It was sort of one of them, wasn't it? You were like, oh. I thought he was just really... he was really lucky that he kind of had his options closed off. They took the shot and it just fucking bobbled in.
Well, often what you want to do is just restrict people to shots from outside the area.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done. And it's pretty unlucky.
As well, with that Charlie Wyke up front, is that clearly what they were aiming to do was to whack crosses into the box, weren't it? So that there was knockdowns for Grigg, or that they could do something. And I thought we did quite a good job of trying to keep them away from the wide areas. But on that occasion, it was just... You're just like, oh, fuck off. That's not fair.
Yeah, because we were playing so much on the counter that often we would drop back and we would have 9 men behind the ball and just be sat there and be like, do your worst. And they didn't really impress me when they came to play us either. They had Josh Madger then. Has he left now, or is he injured?
I think he's gone. I think he's playing for...
Oh, he went to France, didn't he? Yeah.
I think he went to Marseille or something. I'm going to look that up while you carry on talking.
So they didn't really have... Sorry.
I think he went to Bordeaux, didn't he?
He went to Bordeaux, you're right, yeah.
I think the thing with Sunderland is they're very much the type of team that they sort of need to go up this season, don't they? I think they've almost not bothered how they do it. They just wanted to do it, which is why they probably haven't been that impressive every time you've watched them, but they've rolled out the results, and that's almost what they needed to do this season. I don't think they were ever going to attack it and play amazing football. They just need to get out this division, because if they miss it this time, then things are going to get worse and worse for them, aren't they? They sort of needed to just bumble their way out of it somehow.
They don't want to be Sheffield United, do they?
I don't think they want to be us, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got you there.
Sheffield United are now out of it and they're on the verge of the Prem. We're fucked, and I think that's their issue, isn't it?
Would you say they're both bigger clubs than us, though, really?
No, I think they're I mean, to some extent, you go to the Stadium of Light, and whatever you think of the Sunderland fans, I think the Stadium of Light is an amazing stadium.
It is brilliant, to be fair.
Yeah, it's great.
And if they, there was still, they're getting over 30,000. You always think that's a bit tenuous whenever you see the big empty spaces in the ground, but they need to get out of it, and I don't think it really matters how. I think they're also losing at Wembley, I think, did them a little bit. They've got lots of games back to back, which are probably not helping them. They've lost that momentum that they had. I think it was never helpful when you might have 4 games in hand, but if you're you need to win 3 of them to go second. I don't think that ever helps. And I think they're just coming to that wobbly bit where they need to probably keep a level head, conceding 5 against us. And seeing a couple of things where people are getting really nuts. Some of the articles like Coventry's mediocre attack, and everyone's going, "Oh, what do you mean?" It's like, yeah, we've now only scored 50 goals. That 5 was a complete. No one went there expecting us to score 5. We don't score 5.
Amadou Bakayoko is our first choice striker. How much more mediocre could you be than that?
But you say that, but
yet we weren't on the day, were we?
We weren't. I know.
And you can also slag Bakayoko off, but he does. He's scoring goals, isn't he?
Of course, yeah. He's nearly at 1. He's nearly at 1 in 2 at the moment.
Yeah, and again, his goal is a really good run. We talked about this, whether or not it'd be better that Biamu or Bakayoko. The run he makes for that goal.
It's great, yeah.
No one else is making that run for us. I haven't seen any other striker through the middle, apart from maybe Huula, make that run this season, and he's done it. Continuously the last couple of weeks, and that's another. It's a really good, confident finish. Of all of them, it's the only one that doesn't take a deflection, and it's a really good composed finish. And he was also heavily involved in the Shipley goal by just holding the ball up and playing the ball into his path. It's like he's not an amazing footballer, but to go off sort of what Neil said over the years is. He works. We are a better side with him in it, and we are a better side when he's playing well. Whether or not his well is as good as you would want is a different matter. But when he's in the side, we are a better side than we've been at any point in the season before he came in.
The other thing is that we saw Biamu last season, where at the start of the season we were saying he just looks fucking miles away. And then as by the end of the season, we were saying that the man was basically a god, and that people are still saying we'd have got promoted if he'd have been playing all the way from the start. Actually, Biamu is what? He's only 22, 23, is he?
I think is he?
I think he's.
No, I thought he was old.
I thought he's old. Yeah,
28, isn't he?
Are you sure?
Yeah, like this is
28. Yeah.
No, he's 23.
Who? Biamu or Bakayoko?
Bakayoko.
Keep saying Biamu.
Oh, did I? I mean, what's it?
Yeah, changing tack, you big
sorry,
liar.
I mean Bakayoko is his only baby, isn't he? But actually, there's nothing to say that if he goes into for next season as first choice striker with a summer where they work with him and he knows what he's trying to do and everything, he might do some damage in the Championship next season.
Let's slow down. Let's slow down.
Okay, right.
But that's what I really don't want to let happen. 1-5-4 win, a scraped 5-4 win, turn Shipley and Bakayoko into the best players in the Championship.
No, I'm saying there is I think he is so. Well, like I say, anything can happen. I think empirically, on what we've witnessed of Bakayoko, this season, he is a very, very, very odd player and one who has often demonstrated exceptionally low quality. But he's also like the right striker that we've got at the moment for that team.
And he's definitely getting better.
And he's getting better. Yeah, and
it's totally fair, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not saying
totally
he's the
fair
best
assessment.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's the best player in the world. I'm saying that I'm saying there are reasons to be cheerful and there are reasons to be positive. And I think as well, I've got to be careful because I keep saying how awful he is. I don't want it to sound like I'm having a go at him. I do think he serves a function. Let's speed things up then and let's get through the rest of the game. What else was noticeable from the rest of the game? We've not talked about England's best striker in the world, Conor Chaplin.
No, we haven't. We've talked about Shipley's goal, haven't we?
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Burge. Sorry, Burge. That's unforgivable. You need to concentrate. I really think he's checked out of this season. It's just not good enough. But let's move on from that because that was a rare low point there. What was it? Their second goal was the Burge error. The third goal was pretty similar. Just another cross. This one went past Burge.
Wasn't it?
Well, they got headed back across goal and then it was shuffled in.
Yes,
the fourth goal was a deflection.
Yeah, that's it.
Which was them actually building up a little bit of pressure and then yet another deflection. But just like fair play to them, just shoot when you're in the box. You deserve it. But Chaplin, it was pretty magical, to be honest. Him and Wakefield came on at the same time. And Chaplin's first touch is he's on the halfway line, back to goal, sends it out wide, I think, to Bakayoko. Maybe Bakayoko, or maybe it's Bright. Oh no, Bright had just been taken off. And drives forward, then Chaplin's in the box. His second touch is the cross from Wakefield. His touch does 2 defenders. And we're in the away end, so it's miles away. You're so far from what's going on. And you barely even really notice that Chaplin's on the pitch. And the finish is so good because from where we were, it kind of looked like it had gone off the post and the bar and then gone in. And he does this really funny celebration where he kind of makes his way towards the bench, but then realises, A, of all, that he loves Portsmouth, and B, of all, that he's playing Sunderland, kind of wheels back round to the home fans to then let them know that they're, I think, to calm down and that they're not getting promoted, a combination of all of those things. And it's a bit of a Preston away moment where they're just like, oh, you're fucking joking. And they just lose it. They absolutely lose it.
Fuck's sake, man.
Meanwhile, we're going absolutely bananas in the away end. But I mentioned this as well already, just I kind of stopped celebrating goals a bit because I was like, what is going on in this game? They're so meaningless now because they're going to score. I was more confident that we'd win 6-5 than that we would win 5-4.
Like hyperinflation at the end of World War One in Germany.
Yeah, queuing for the supermarket in Zimbabwe.
We flooded the market with goals and now they're worthless.
It was just bonkers, and you're looking around the away end and everyone's faces everyone was just a bit crazed, manic expressions on their faces, no one really understood what was going on. And it felt super important at the time, but you did sort of quickly realise that this was all horribly meaningless, and not for the reason that Paul's outlined, but for the reason that even if we'd just beaten Bristol Rovers, we'd now be 3 points? Oh no, we wouldn't. We'd be 5 points off instead of 8 points off.
Would be good,
and even that would be kind of interesting, but 8 points is just too much, isn't it? But it was completely magical. And I'm really pleased for Chaplin because he's been out injured for probably longer than he thought he would be. And he's kind of been completely replaced by Enna Bakari. Enna Bakari's, made for that position. So fair enough. But
I without wanting to stir the shit a little bit, do you not think also that Chaplin increasingly might be made for the position that he found himself in on Saturday?
What position was he even playing? I didn't even really know.
What I mean is coming off the bench and having an impact off the bench.
Well, that's what Portsmouth did, didn't they? That's
some players. That's just what they do, isn't it? And actually, he has looked at his best. I felt for us this season, where he's come on with 20 minutes to go, rather than coming off having played for 70 minutes. And I just thought his footwork for the goal was brilliant. And again, it's what we've talked about with him earlier in the season when he was playing more regularly. Actually, when he's in the box, he looks like he's dangerous. When he's not, you don't want to see him trying to do everything.
But it's also a case of, you sort of down with faint praise. Also, it's a lot easier to do that in the 90th minute if you've been on the pitch for 2 minutes against defenders who've been playing for 90 minutes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and you can sort of see that you watch it. If you sort of watch it slightly dispassionately, his touch isn't that great. He's just got lots of time, and he smacks in the top corner. It's a great goal, but they're just tired around him. They're just a yard behind him because they're just knackered, and that's nothing to take away from him because it's a great finish, and that's exactly what you want out of him. You want him on the pitch, fresh against tired defenders. But that's what Portsmouth did. That's where he got all of his goals for Portsmouth, was coming off the bench. And we discussed this a couple of pods ago. Maybe he has to understand and accept the fact that he is an impact player who comes on against tired defences and does that. And if he can score 20 goals, basically by playing half the amount of time as everyone else, but playing when it's actually critical and it makes a big difference, then that's fine because you've got the other players to tire them out. And that's when he's at his best, when he's playing against tired players.
Neil, you're a big guy for this, aren't you?
I am, because surely you look at it. I guess you've got to play the percentages a lot, and they'll obviously prefer to start a game because there's a chance of him starting well and then playing 90 minutes and getting a bunch of goals. But it feels to me like surely it's better for him if that is the period of time where he can have the most impact, or where over the course of time we've seen that's the case. Surely that's better to do that than give him 45, 60 minutes where he's been dominated by people who are still, pretty sort of fresh, and because that's what's been happening, hasn't it? So I mean, over time, you just kind of got to look at it and accept that maybe that's just the best. It sounds really sort of damning, but the best he can hope for, and that's not to say for the rest of his career he's going to have to do that, but almost at this period of time, that's how he can probably get the most success out of what he's got available to him.
Sad facts of football. Clubs will never be run by custodians looking for the best interest of fans, and players will never seek to sacrifice themselves for the best for a team, will they? It just doesn't. Those things never happen, and it's ludicrous that football, which is a team game, you'd expect then if there was a squad that you could use on a match day, you would tactically use all of that. It's that same thing that I never understand why it seemed to be the biggest indignity of all things in football that you sub off a player that was subbed on. Actually, if it's because they're playing absolutely horrendously, then I think fair play, I get it. But they talk about it if then somebody gets sent off and they make a tactical substitution, it's seen as this big indignity. And you just think, no, it's just a fact. That's the player that needed to
do it.
Just why has that got to be some slap in the face? Why have you got to have some consideration about that? No, tactically, as a team, that was what needed to happen. But there you go. Anyway, we're going to talk to Dom now because we've got 2 games over Easter, and then we're going to talk about the stadium for a little bit, and then we will leave you be. Hi Dom, thanks for joining us.
No, it's, as always, good to be on.
2 games this week, well, this weekend, I suppose. So Bradford first. What can we expect from them?
Yeah, well, they are on the verge of being relegated. If they lose this game, they will be confirmed in being League Two, although isn't really any realistic prospect of them staying up. It's been a spectacular failure for them, and really the unravelling of a club who 18 months ago, 2 years ago, were being hailed as a modern club. I mean, every time released those season ticket prices to be the absolute envy of every fan, packed out Valley Parade, team challenging for the playoffs in League One, but it's really gone sour and unravelled in quite quick fashion. They were taken over by a pair of German businessmen, Stefan Rupp and Edin Rahic, and Rahic, who was more involved in the day-to-day running of the club, just really had this megalomaniacal streak to him. He wanted control over the transfers. He sort of fancied himself as sort of director of football kind of figure, and over the summer that had a massive impact on what kind of manager they could bring in. Simon Grayson walked out after a short-term spell there, which was reasonably unsuccessful, but it's sort of a club that's been falling to pieces, and sort of the motivation around the place. And despite actually having what is reported to be a top 6 budget this season, and if you look at that squad, there's some very good players there. They have no business being bottom of League One. It's just been more about that sort of structural failing more than the talent they have on the pitch.
So tell us more about the talent that they've got on the pitch.
So particularly up front and sort of in attacking midfield areas, they have some very good players. I think quite a few of them could play in the Championship, or at the very least for a good League One club. And I think possibly if you had sort of someone like Mark Robbins or just a decent League One manager in charge of that, they would have been punching towards sort of playoffs this season. So they've got Owen Doyle up front, who is a pretty reliable and experienced forward at League One level, can hold ball up and also score his fair share of goals. And they've got Jack Payne, who is basically a one-man attack. He can create and score goals. He's sort of a little low centre of gravity player. He's very good at sort of just holding the ball around the penalty area and beating in blind pass plays. He's just a fantastic player to watch and just almost impossible to stop. And the problem is, just haven't really been getting the ball to him enough this season. And he's having to do too much of it on his own, even though they've also got a long time David Ball, who was number 10 for Rotherham last season, the side that won promotion. We've got Lewis O'Brien, who's unknown from Huddersfield, has had a really good season actually, in sort of a deep line central role, can get forward, good pass of the ball, got a good shot on him as well. Got Jacob Butterfield, who has been part of a playoff challenging championship squads over the past few seasons. Sean Scannell, who has always been sort of tipped as decent enough prospect, getting on in years at the moment, but he's been injured for quite a large part of this season, but recently he's come back into the side, and you can just tell he's just far too good for a League One relegation battle. He just beats players for fun, can carry the ball forward. So it's a very dangerous squad. You don't want to write them off, even though they are right on the verge of relegation now. They're in a bit of disarray in the back. It just looks like they didn't get the defensive recruitment right. Questions over the character of one or two players maybe slightly past it, who they leaned on it in recent years. So, I mean, it's kind of hard, aside from that overall stuff, if you look at the team on the pitch, just why that team is towards the bottom of the division. It's a real mystery.
But a team that hopefully we should be dispatching fairly easily then, yep.
In theory.
In theory. Well, yeah, of course. And then Portsmouth probably not in that same bracket.
Yeah, although given the way our performances have gone over the past couple of months, maybe the one you'd be slightly more confident of winning. But yeah, Portsmouth, if they win all their remaining games, they will go up automatically. That's because one of their remaining games includes a game against Sunderland. So it's a bit of a weird situation at the top of League One at the moment, where second and third place know they will go up if they win all their remaining games. Of course, Portsmouth were leading the division for quite a large portion of the season, and then they had an absolute collapse over January, February. They lost a couple of key loan players. They lost Jack Watmore in central defence to a season-ending injury, but still, it was quite a remarkable collapse. And I suppose remarkable as well how they've managed to put it all back together, and sort of testament to Kenny Jackett's management that he hasn't really hit the panic button. He's just sort of managed to get on with things. Obviously, they won the Checkatrade Trophy recently, and now they're getting into good form recently and are right in the automatic promotion mix.
And player-wise for Portsmouth, who are we looking out for?
So for much of the season, it's been about the two wide men for Portsmouth, Jamal Lowe and Ronan Curtis. Both have 10 goals and 10 assists, around that mark each to them. They're just very, very good wide men. And for quite a large part of the season, Portsmouth's game was just entirely about sitting back and hitting teams on the counter. Ronan Curtis, I mean, they're both really fast wingers, but Ronan Curtis has an excellent way of delivering the ball at pace while running. It's sort of quite remarkable. He's managed to get that technique, and someone they signed relatively cheaply from the Irish Premier League over the summer, so quite fun for them. Hasn't been in his top form in recent weeks, but that hasn't really mattered because Jamal Lowe has seemed to really sort of upped it, particularly in these past few weeks, although he's been fantastic all season. He's sort of the dictionary definition of a live wire winger, excellent close control, really fast, a lot of skill, beats players for fun, and he's making himself a real menace. I would imagine with the Easter fixture, and given the depth that Portsmouth have to their squad, that Kane Jackett will be rotating a few players, so that might mean if someone like Brett Pittman starts on Good Friday, he won't be playing in this game, although Kane Jackett has shown that he will probably play a 4-4-2 formation at home, which will probably see Brett Pittman start, and probably we'll see those attack-minded wings of the squad, and then someone in central midfield like Ben Close, who has sort of picked up a reputation this season at Portsmouth, maybe being something of a flat track buddy. He's got quite a good goal-scoring record for a central midfielder. He's a good passer of the ball, but there's a little bit of a suspicion there that he doesn't cope well against stronger teams, maybe teams who are more willing to press him and put him under pressure. So someone who could be the decisive player for Portsmouth, but also someone who could be someone to target. And then in central defence, Portsmouth have Matt Clark, who I think is the best centre-back in League One. Not only just a fantastic defender and a real sort of man-melting, dominant kind of centre-back, but absolutely excellent ball player as well. He's got quite a lot to his game, and if and when Portsmouth go up to the Championship, he's going to be someone who's going to settle into the Championship with a lot of ease. And then at fullback, just two players to make you aware of. You've got Lee Brown at left back, who's an excellent crosser of the ball, both from open play and set pieces. Then Nathan Thompson, who is just a pure shithouse. He's just like, if even a player is in the same postcode as him, he'll go down. He's if you notice it, just how easily he goes down under the sort of slightest of opposition touches, it just really winds you out. But it's obviously very, very effective for him, and something that's worked sort of Richard Duffy kind of streak to him. But yeah, someone who just always just grinds my gears whenever I see him come up against us. So yeah.
Final thought then, who do you think will be going up out of this division?
I honestly can't tell. I think my suspicion at the moment, sort of where it's going, I reckon automatically Luton's pretty much got its own up. I'd probably put Sunderland just ahead of Portsmouth, but I mean, really sort of flip a coin. I mean, Charlton in it just about as well. So it's making up for a really exciting race. And of course, Barnsley I haven't mentioned, but yeah, it's going to be a really exciting a few weeks if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, it'll be a really exciting few weeks for everyone else. Right, okay, perfect. I will say thank you and speak to you next week.
All right, speak to you then.
Okay, thanks, Dom. Lovely stuff. Right, less lovely stuff. Let's cut to our resident doommonger in the field, Paul. The latest
Cheers,
revelations. Are you refuting that as an accusation, or let's be clear?
Not really. It's a team game. You've got to sort of accept your role within the team.
Yeah, very good. Right, give us an update on what the latest is for anybody that's had their head in the cave.
Well, basically, Wasps today have lost their latest court case or judicial review. Basically,
Sorry, you said Wasps, just to be clear.
Sorry,
the club, yeah.
Sisu. Sorry, Sisu have lost their latest legal case, but I think, basically, cutting a very long story short, I think people who you seem to know to some extent what Sisu's plan is have sort of accepted the fact they were never going to win in the British courts anyway, because no British court would bankrupt a council, so it was always going to go to Europe, whatever happened. Whether or not Sisu then still take that forward, or whether or not they can, I don't know. Some people seem to think they do know, seem to think they can. Some people think they do know, seem to think they can't. I haven't got a clue. So last Thursday, the club put out a statement basically saying that their options were ground sharing away from Coventry, and that the rumours are that it's going to be Burton or Birmingham. Again, whether or not that's true, I think Birmingham did say that they had been in talks.
Isn't the latest today that it's the Butts or Birmingham, which are the two
No,
options?
apparently the Butts has been refuted by the owner of the Butts.
Okay.
Also, the Butts they're looking to put a 3G pitch in, which isn't allowed for professional football. Also, there's only a 4,000 capacity, so they'll have to build a load of new stands. It's just, I don't think the Butts is a goer, as much as my little poll indicated it was the preferred option. But unfortunately, that isn't an option. So they have to stay in Coventry. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be able to stay in Coventry. Wasps have continued to put out their line that they won't deal with Sisu while Sisu are suing the council. That's it. I mean, it looks like we're leaving. Apparently, first choice would still be Wasp, but I think if you've spoken to anyone who sort of is slightly in the know, there's no communication going on between the three of them. The council didn't turn up to the parliamentary thing, and that shows their regard for it, I suppose. We are where we are.
There's also apparently no communication on a regular basis, at least, between the owners of the club and the club, is there, by the sounds of it?
No, and I think that's obviously we know that Mark Robbins met Joyce Parler in is it Coombe Abbey not that long
Abbey,
ago. So obviously the last time, when people go back to the last time we left the Rico, Mark Robbins left not long before that, and he said at the time that basically the council weren't helping, and he also said that the football club were a bit of a fucktard. So I think he's fully aware of the fact that this isn't a simple situation, and I think he's fully aware that, you know, the football club probably wouldn't be leaving if they didn't feel like they were going to win their court case. I think whether or not they will win their court case, or whether or not they can continue to run their court case, I don't think we'll ever. You know, that has to, unfortunately, that has to go to its natural conclusion. As much as I think we'd all like them to desist, but again, maybe if it was our money, we wouldn't be. Honestly don't know. I think that's the problem, as you said earlier, sort of in a flippant remark, is like the owners of the football club aren't custodians of anything. They don't really care. It's all about money. Whoever we got in, as much as we like to think would be fucking lovely owners, that day is gone. There are no lovely owners in football. Even everyone's favourite Swansea sold out to Americans in the end. It's all about making money, as much money as you can.
I've banged on about this before. I just don't get why. I mean, I do get it because it's 2019 and it's England. But I don't understand why. I don't understand why we've let it get to the point where it could be commodified in such a way that wouldn't you have just had a level playing field that involved like restrictions on how it could work? Do you know what I mean? So that you would make it kind of that they would all be either not for profit or does that make sense? That was it that you would make it so that it could never be anything other than an enterprise where money couldn't be funneled out of it for individual gain, because they're not businesses as such, are they? Or at least they were never set up to be businesses. They were meant to be community enterprises that were there for entertainment and kind of, I don't want to sound like fucking Karl Marx, but it's not that's not the function of what a football club is. And I know that over time that has sort of morphed and whatever else. Now it's the product of the Premier League and everything. But it makes me very cross to think that actually all of football's ills, or most of football's ills, have come about because like a few people wanted to get rich out of it. And that's really all it's boiled down to. It's the same with a lot of things in life, isn't it, I suppose?
It's not that simple, though, is it? Because Woolwich Arsenal moved from South London to North London in 1890 or 1906 or whatever, because there was more money to be made in North London than South London.
Yeah, I'm not. You know, that's the same thing, isn't it?
And that's going back to the sort of the formations of football. I think, unfortunately, while you are correct, I think the problem is we are in the situation we're in. We know that. I think the other issue is the fact that Wasps are now being investigated for their financial irregularities.
Oh no, don't worry about that. They're all their finances are fine.
They're just resting in their account.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Everything's fine there.
So yeah, and then I often a slight tangent, but the fact that we know that the council were trying to buy Wasps in 2011-12, and then for me, that the only thing that makes me think is, well, if you were looking at Wasps and you'd known that Coventry Council were trying to buy Wasps to bring to the Rico, and you knew that they'd come out with comments like, over my dead body will I deal with Sisu, you buy Wasps and you go, the Rico. Who are they going to sell that to now? Would that be Wasps? Oh, I own Wasps. I think I'll make a bid for the Rico. The whole thing stinks, and I think it stinks to high heaven from everyone. And I think, as you know, as sort of people who listen to this know, I went to Northampton. I don't know about next season. I'm sort of a bit sick of it all. But I just think, there are reasons that Coventry aren't at the Rico, and Sisu are a big part of that. But they're not the only reason they're not there. There's been evil bastards involved with this, and money grabbing bastards are involved in this from all sides. And Wasps are just, you can sort of say, oh yeah, Wasps are just like, they just took advantage. They took advantage because they knew they could. And those sort of pieces of information about the council trying to buy Wasps just make you think they didn't take advantage. They were basically given it on a plate. They knew what they were getting into when they bought Wasp because those talks had already been in place. They didn't it wasn't, Rico's available. They knew about that before they took Wasp over. That was part of why I'm beginning to believe it's probably part of why they took the Wasp over.
Yeah. There's also this kind of the NHS will get £300 million kind of statement of, as long as we're here, that Coventry City will never be disadvantaged or whatever. That kind of, you just think we live in a beautiful society now where people can say anything and have no repercussions for it at all. It doesn't matter. Words are meaningless. You can break your word. Don't worry about it. It's all just shit, and we'll say it and then we'll move on. Nobody will really hold us to account or mind or anything. I would say, if I'm going to try and bring it back to a slightly positive note, is I think when we were at this point around Northampton, is the sort of inter-fan relationship was it's absolutely most toxically acrimonious. But actually, I feel like we've sort of converged into the middle a bit, don't we? I'm surprised at how much council antipathy there is when the prevailing feeling was so much anti-Sisu. And I don't think anybody now thinks that Sisu are brilliant. They're not. They've been fucking vile from the moment that they've stepped in. But actually, there does seem to be this kind of we need to hold all sides to account feeling that really should have been there from the start. And I think that I am at least glad that I think what really, really made that last lot so horrible was how everyone turned in on each other fan-wise. And at least I'm hoping that doesn't seem to be quite the same case this time round, does it?
I mean, Paul's just made a statement there, which is really with me. You said you're sick of it. And it's a really simple statement, but it's one that resonates with me more than anything else. And I think that's where a lot of almost this kind of ambivalence toward the situation is coming from for a lot of people. Is just because it's got to the point now where investing the same level of sort of thought and sort of emotion into it just doesn't seem worth it, in the sense where ultimately what we're looking at is a situation where a handful of people have the future of a community football club within their hands, and that essentially they're doing nothing about it to allow it to be resolved, which is infuriating to think that that's the case. But at the same point, it's just the way of the modern world now, where all big decisions that affect big groups of people are made by very select handful of people. So I mean, that's annoying. But in terms of like before, the period of time, was it like 18 months or so, where we were constantly totally immersed in this almost argument between ourselves about this sort of faux morality about exactly what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And I feel like at least this time there's still anger within kind of the Coventry fan community, and there's still sort of the Sisu haters and the Sisu sympathisers, or at least the accused Sisu sympathisers. But I think at
we're
least
called Sisu puppets is our actual.
Is our latest one?
That's my preferred pronoun. Yeah,
we'll go with that one for the next couple of months. It's just, I think at least when it comes to making decisions about next season, it feels at least a little bit different now. So I don't think you're going to get, because of the nature of this move and how it's kind of come about, I think people will make their own decisions, and they'll be allowed to make their own decisions, because it feels almost more forced than last time. Last time was just sheer sort of belligerence from a Caesar almost. They were just causing the trouble themselves, and it was almost the argument from our point, a certain size, was if you went to Sixfield, you're enabling that, and you were almost not supporting it, but you're giving them a reason to kind of continue it. Whereas this time around, it's like, well, fuck, we've got to play somewhere. People are really enjoying it. You've got kids really enjoying the football club. A lot of people just want to go and see it. I mean, cards on the table, I genuinely just don't think I can be bothered to move about the place, so I'll probably end up in Hong Kong most weekends watching it. But I just think I know a lot of people will decide to find a way to go and watch it. And the other point, just I know I've rambled on for a couple of minutes, but the other point that I think is important to note is we've been at the Rico for like 14 years now. For a lot of people, that's all they know. So while we kind of romanticize Highfield Road because we were there and we lived that period, and we kind of talk about that, how that's the real Coventry City. Well, actually, for a lot of people, Rico, and a lot of children as well, Rico will feel like home to them. So that they're the ones that I can't forget, because actually I keep seeing people posting really quite sort of sad posts about their kids not being able to go to the football again. And I just think that back to when I was that age, and the feeling you got when you actually walked to the football match, and then you actually walked into the stadium, didn't realise that it was it didn't matter that it was a shithole. It was still your home stadium, and it felt special. So the fact that those kids now won't have that at the Rico, and that's kind of all they've got, that probably beyond anything else, it really upsets me, because they want to watch their football team and they don't really understand all the politics behind it. And now they're having to go elsewhere to a place which clearly won't be home.
I think the problem is no one knows the answer to it, do they? And I think that's the part of the issue this time. We won't go over the old one. I think we are in this complete flux where there is no easy solution to this other than a lot of people taking a lot of sensible decisions instead of ego-driven ones. And I think what I found of all this, the most amazing statement I've read was when the is it Nick Eastwood, who's the director or whatever he is at WAS, was like, the people are on our side. And it's like, they're really not, mate.
Saying words again.
Yeah, you if you think that WAS, everyone hates Sisu, that's fine. You know, that's almost a given. I always found it really odd when you're on Twitter and people are like, well, and you sort of like, you say anything negative about the council, it's like, yeah, what about Sisu? And you just, what they can't respond to is, yeah, I know our owners are shit. And they're like, I'm a big WAS fan. And it's like, WAS shouldn't be in Coventry. Rah, 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 rah. Your owners. And it's like, yeah, our owners are shit. Yeah, they are. It's like, well,
next.
Yeah, now go back to the fact that WAS shouldn't be in Cov. Well, it's all about a community club. Yeah, they're not from this community, are they? They always roamed around. Yeah, fucking London they roamed around. Like, this is 150, 200 miles away from where they used to fucking roam around. Do you know why they're in Coventry? Because of the Rico. They haven't come because of anything other than the fact they could make money out of the Rico. Luckily, they're not doing that. So don't fucking start talking to me like WAS are this fucking anything other than a money-grabbing bunch of bastards either. That's exactly why they're in Coventry. That's why fucking Wimbledon moved to Milton Keynes. It's to make the owners money. It's nothing to do with the club. It's to do with the owners making as much money as possible. So don't start fucking making them out to be these saints or anything, because they're not. And I think that's the issue. It's like, last time it was like, yeah, okay, the council are arseholes, but this time we're being thrown out of the ground that was clearly built for us by the fact it's sky blue and got our fucking name written on it by a London rugby club. And I know people go, they're not called London Wasps. They're only called London Wasps for 15 years. Yes, they were called London Wasps because they were based in fucking London. And it's like, that's the issue we've got here, is the fact that there are no good guys in this. There's no one who I want to see win. I want them all to fucking fail. A curse on all their houses. But goes back to this, the most basic thing that fucked this football club over, more fucks us over than having Sisu anything else, was the day that the council gave that ground to Wasps. Yep. Because we always knew this was going to happen. Whoever owns Coventry City Football Club will always be the tenants of a London rugby club. And that was always going to be the issue. And I'm pretty confident if the council hadn't done that, someone might have taken over from Wasps. They might have, because we'd have been looked like a football club that was worth buying. We're not a football club worth buying. There are lots of other football clubs who are same sort of situation as us, but in a far better situation. And there's tons of them in the Championship who are similar size to us, but don't have any of this bollocks. And that's where we are.
Well said, mate.
Can I wrap things up with my post-apocalyptic vision of the future? The year is 2025, and we are scrambling around in League Two, and we have announced that we've gone back to the Rico, and the first goal is scored by Frank Nouble, who has rejoined the club at 33.
Oh yes. Apart from the League Two bit.
No, I mean, this is what's it? This is post. We're playing a team of cockroaches. I should add as well.
That's no way to talk about Sunderland. Ooh.
Fuck off, man.
I think that's probably a good place to leave it. Okay. If you want to get in touch with us, at Neil Lamptey Show on Twitter, neillampteyshow@gmail.com is the email address. Thank you for joining us, Laurie.
No worries. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
And thank you, listener. Bye.